All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, you are welcome to today's affiliate training session. Um, my name is Kelvin Mba, and today I will be your moderator for today. Um, it's nice having you guys around. Thank you for all showing up today for this training. Uh, like we all know, in real estate, showing up is the showing up puts you ahead of other people when it comes to real estate. It puts you ahead and gives you um, leverage over some other persons and all that. So it's nice having you guys around. Um, I want us to just prepare our minds and our writing materials while we welcome, by the time we welcome our facilitator who will be handling today's sessions. There are some ground rules I would like to state before we start, and which I think it's imperative that each and every one of us knows here. Whatever has to do with distractions, we should try to minimize distractions and some side talks. Um, Besides that, get your writing materials. You might not come with a book or pen, but then if you have your phone, there is also a note in your phone. It is very necessary that we put down some points which will be helpful for each and every one of us here today. Today is not just a training. It's supposed to give us some kind of mind shift for each and every one of us here. To help us proceed. When I mean mind shifts, there's supposed to be some paradigm shift in our mind, how we reason things, how we see things. Also help with increasing our earning capacity and also position us properly for what we have decided to get ourselves into. Okay. Um, for those who are new here today, we are not just a selling a company that are just into selling land. The aim in this is to build leaders that are into real estate, leaders that know what they are into, people that are versatile, that are knowledgeable about the product and whatever it is that they are into. We don't just come here train you that you should go sell land. The idea is to equip you with every knowledge needed to go into this industry. So I would urge us to prepare our hearts, prepare our mind for whatever it's going to come. Because some of the things that will be taught here are things that you would encounter out there. There are things that you would encounter, and it is very, 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 very necessary that you know these things so that it will help you when you start seeing it, maybe as a result of clients asking you questions, or maybe people asking you some kind of detailed questions. So I'll urge us to just get our heart, our mind prepared um, as we um, learn here today. So it will be my honor to introduce our facilitator for today in the person of manager Winners, the manager of Zenith Estate, a subsidiary under his group of company. So I would like us to give her a clapping and a standing ovation as we make welcome manager Winners to the platform for our affiliate session today.
Thank you. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. You have to change the phone, please. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, you're welcome to today's training, Hills Group Realtors training. And it's an honor and a privilege to stand here But by the special grace of God, I assure everyone seated here and the ones that are going to be seated later on that today's teaching will definitely worth your time. Your coming here won't be a waste of transport or a waste of time. Amen to that. Amen. All right, today we are going to be looking at legal pathways to land ownership in Nigeria. Is my slide ready? Okay. So there's no point writing. Legal pathways to land ownership in Nigeria. All right, next slide. Now, this is more like an introduction or a foundation of what we are going to be looking at. Legal pathway simply means what right or what right of ownership does someone have before they can own or sell a land. Because for you to own a land is partly that you can sell the land. Not all ownership of land is, or do I say means that you can sell a land. Don't worry, I'll explain. Let me not get ahead of myself. All right, the foundation of ascertaining if you should sell a property for someone is whether they have the right of ownership, which further translates to the right to sell. The right to sell, in turn, gives birth to the right to transfer title. Now, let me break this down. For you to have right of ownership, this is right of ownership here. Simply translates to right to sell. And if you have the right to sell, you definitely have the right to transfer ownership or title. Okay, this is just a breakdown of what this introduction is trying to tell us. Before you sell any land as a realtor, I understand that as realtors, we may not sell one property that is peculiar to a real estate company, unless you've decided that, okay, I've decided to work with this particular real estate company, like some of us have decided to work with Hills Group. Okay, but if you find yourself in a situation where you have to sell a property that belongs to an individual or another real estate company that you are not really conversant with their mode of operation or the way they acquire their properties, you should be able to ascertain if these people have the right to sell. Okay, first, do they have the right of ownership? Secondly, do they have the right to sell? And thirdly, do they have the right to transfer title? Because some persons can have the right to own a property. You can have right of ownership, but you don't have right to sell. I mentioned that at the beginning, but I will explain as we proceed. So this English, this grammar now simply translates to this. Right of ownership gives birth to right to sell. Right to sell gives birth to transfer ownership. Okay, let's put. Now, in establishing the right of ownership, I want us to now lay a foundation on a prerequisite for owning a land. If you say that you are entitled to own this land, what are the uh, ways that you can rightfully own a land that is recognizable under the Nigerian law, which is the Land Use Act of 1978. Now, there are about 10 of them which I've listed here, but subsequently I will explain. So there is something called customary ownership. Before the Land Use Act of 1978, which is what regulates land acquisition, selling and buying. This is just what regulates real estate in Nigeria. Before the Land Use Act of 1978, there was something called customary law. That was what regulated land or real estate before the Land Use Act came. So now customary law recognizes customary ownership. What is customary ownership? First to the forest can own. That was how our forefathers, were able to get massive plots of land. When you come to an area, to a forest, and you clear it, you can say that this land is now mine. So that is what customary ownership simply means. First to inherit, first to not inherit, first to acquire, first to the forest gives you automatically, you are now the owner of that large expanse or small expanse of plots. So that is what customary ownership simply means. But then somehow in today's uh, law, this ownership right is still recognized. That is why it's still among the 10 legal ways of owning a land. That is why it's still here, because even the new law still recognizes this. Is that clear? All right. Now, the second one is inheritance. I mean, we all have, some of us that are men, in Igbo tradition, as na wanya de wana, that is, you cannot inherit land. Abi? I don't know if it's applicable in your. Are we not Igbo people here? Papa wanya de wana on your side. Okay, so this is just what inheritance stands for in land ownership, and it's recognized under the Nigerian law. If you say that this land was inherited, you inherited this land from your father, which your father inherited from his father and his father from, you still recognize that you are the rightful owner of the land. Now, if you inherited the land, you should also proceed to getting the papers, getting it documented, so that you can, be sure that this land is safe and secure. Now, that is that about inheritance. All right, the next one says, what do we have? Government allocation, that is state grant. Okay, this one is a little bit broad, but I will try as much as possible to break it down so that we can understand. Okay, now government allocation, most times this is applicable in all the 30 states of Nigeria because it's highly recognized under the Land Use Act. This is a way someone can get a land from the government. That is government giving you a land. It can be to an individual, it can be to a community, it can be to a company. This is just the federal government giving you. This is mostly, I don't know if you are conversant with this, but those in FCT, those in Abuja, that is where you will get this more. It's more rampant there, where government gives an individual, a community, or a company a land and say, this is a land for you. Okay, now when this happens, the document that will back this one, you don't even need deed of assignment, you don't need all those documents. The document that backs that this land is actually your own because the government gave it to you. The document that backs this is a statutory right of ownership. Okay, then it is also backed by allocated C of O. C of O, there are two types of C of O. I've explained this in this, I know I've explained it before. Two types of C of O. Who can remember? I know I've talked about it before. Eh? Uh-huh. 1,000 naira airtime going. Two types of C of O. Remember? Eh? No, there are two types of, no, there are two types of power of attorney. And there are two types of C of O as well. Who remembers? Somebody is saying something there, but she's not sure. Away. All right. So you are trying to take me back, but it's fine since I'm explaining. Now there are two types of C of O. There is, I hope I can clean this. Okay. I'll still get to the point where I'll have to explain again the two types of power of attorney. What are the two types of power of attorney? Who can remember? And what? And what? You know. Okay, let's deal with C of O first. There are two types of C of O. There is allocated C of O and there is applied C of O. Okay, now there is also two types of arrow of O, right of occupants. Arrow of O. There is statutory arrow of O, and there is customary. Yeah, customary arrow of O. Okay, I had to mention this because I'll use it to explain this. Now, allocated C of O is applicable in a government allocated land. Let's say you did something remarkable for your, or something noble for your nation or state. The government can say, oh Chisom, we love what you did for the country, we love what you did for the state. So take these 10 plots of land located here at Independence Layout Phase 2. This is the government saying thank you to you. They'll give it to you. When they give it to you, this is the document you get, allocated C of O, because the land is coming straight from the government. Now, applied C of O is that one that you as an individual and we as a company now goes to the Surveyor General's office to apply for. I hope you know that is where this is issued from. C of O is issued from the Surveyor General's office, Office of the Surveyor General, yes. That is where C of O is issued from. Okay, so I hope we can note the difference now. This is the one you pay for, you go for the process, they'll tell you fill this, do this, and apply. That is applied C of O, but allocated C of O comes from directly from the government. Now, if it is allocated C of O, note that your arrow of O will have statutory right of occupancy. Okay, now if it is customary has to do with more of local government, state government, more of local government. But if it's federal or state government, you're talking about statutory right of occupancy. That is what will be reflected in your allocated C of O. I don't know if this is clear. Right of occupancy and certificate of occupancy. What's the difference between right of occupancy and certificate of occupancy? Somebody is saying something. Speak up, speak up. We are realtors here. We are bold. We are confident. All right. Let me explain again. I know I've explained this before. Does anybody want to try? I like it when we remember what we've been taught before. Jennifer, you want to try? Eh? Say it now. Say it. You don't know if you'll be right. No idea. Okay. Now, right of occupancy and certificate of occupancy. Right of occupancy is like, okay, let me use this relatable scenario. Somebody went to law, studied law in the university. Abi? Now, I hope you know that person cannot practice, or you cannot call that person a full barrister or lawyer unless he or she goes through what? Law school and get called to bar. Now that is what shows that through you studied law in school. That is just the case between arrow of O and certificate of occupancy. This is the right that shows, this right right of occupancy simply reflects the number of rights you have to the ownership of this land. Okay, now your certificate now contains those rights. Your certificate shows that true you have the right to do this and do this on this land. That is just it. This is contained in this. That is, right of occupancy is contained in certificate of occupancy. Your certificate of occupancy shows your right of occupancy. That is just it. I hope it's clear now. Okay, so now, like I said, I was I was still at government allocated, right? Government allocated ownership. Now I said if government allocates or gives you a land, if you were able to own a land through the government gave you a land, you're definitely getting your allocated C of O, and your allocated C of O will reflect statutory right of occupancy. I hope that is clear for this. Any question on this? Okay, we proceed. Now the second one or the fourth one, we are the fourth one, right? I hope I can clean this. The fourth way or the fourth legal path to owning a land in Nigeria that is recognized under the Nigerian law is, this is number 4, we have purchase. And this is where you as a realtor or we as a real estate firm comes in, where you can sell or buy a land. This is also recognized that you went to a real estate company or you met a realtor, your friend that is a realtor, and you were able to purchase a land through the person or through the real estate company. You have, definitely you have the right to own that land. And this is mostly common. I believe this is the most common way of ownership within town, right? Okay. Now, the document that should be given you at this level or at this point is your deed of assignment, depending on what the land has, depending on the document the land has. Now, there are some lands that have C of O. There are some lands that have deed of assignment, which we call D of A, deed of assignment. We have irrevocable power of attorney. These are some documents that are obtainable through purchase. Okay, and many of them like that. There is something called deed of conveyance. Some states use it, especially those in the north. They still use it. Some people still use it. It's just the same thing as deed of assignment. So there is also deed of agreement. There are so many kinds of deed. I can give you an assignment or on your own, go and check different types of documents that are obtainable under purchase. Because we give deed of assignment, irrevocable power of attorney, and survey plan, doesn't mean that there are no other recognizable, legally recognizable documents that you can get when you purchase a land. It's just that these ones are more standard. Okay, so that is why we use this. So, but there are many kinds of deed of agreement, deed of conveyance, and all of that. All right, so on your own, you can do that. That will be a take home for us. Okay, now the fifth one is gift. I think I'll clean this. I don't want to bend. The fifth one is gift, otherwise called, okay, I'll just put it in brackets, enter vivos. Okay, now somebody can gift you a land and it's legal as long as you have your deed of gift. When you get a land as a gift, the document or the legal document that shows that you have the right of ownership to this land through gift is your deed of gift. So when someone gifts you a land, the document backing it legally is deed of gift. Today is Kelvin. Today is Kelvin's birthday. I've decided to give him this 10 plots of land here. If it was during the era of the customary law, it is recognized without any document. But please, since we are no longer, in the era of the customary law, we are now in the Land Use Act of 1978 era. The deed of gift should be backing that gift of yours from a friend to friend or from a family to a family member, anyone. Now, intervivors, you can, anywhere you see intervivors, just know they're talking about a land that was given to you, a land asset, anything that was given to you as a gift. So you can see this and you can also see this. But most times you will see this, intervivors. Intervivors is simply a Latin term or phrase that means, it's a Latin phrase meaning while alive, or it can mean so anywhere you see intervivors, just know it means, this simply translates to while alive or between the living, meaning this was a transaction that happened in the person's lifetime. It wasn't gifted to the person through will when the person was dead or something like that. So that is just what this implies. Any question from this before we proceed? Okay. Now moving to the sixth one. I hope I can wipe this off. I can wipe this off, right? Okay. At number 6, we have something called assent. All right. Now, assent simply means that property that was willed to you by someone late, maybe a late father. Yeah, mostly fathers, they are the ones that write will, Abi. So that property captured there that says, Okechukwu, my son, should now be the owner of these 10 acres of land at, where do I use now? Ibawa. That has already given you the right of ownership, and you can sell the land and you can also transfer title. So this is highly recognized under the Nigerian law that someone can own a land through will or by will. What you call that process or that property is an assent. I hope that is clear. Okay, now the seventh one, we have a court judgment. Now, the court has the right to transfer ownership to either of the parties that are arguing after a land dispute. When these two parties say, no, I'm the owner of this land, this one says, no, I'm the owner of this land, and then they take it to court. They say, okay, let's go to court. And the court, after a long sessions of and days of court sittings and all of that, at the end of the day, the judge can pronounce and say, okay, the family of Okechukwu, after we've examined all and this with all their legal jargons. After speaking all of that, they can say under what and what this land belongs to you. So a family or an individual can own a land simply by court judgment. Now, if the judgment was carried out in a customary court, the other party that is not still satisfied can still take it to the higher court, court of appeal and high court and all of that. Now, at the end of all of this, and the judgment still confers the right of ownership on the other party, this other party have no right to fight them because it's coming from the highest authority. Hope this is clear. So someone can own a land through land dispute. If the land dispute favors you in court, you can own a land. So, Kobeno case. All right. Okay. I don't. Now, number 8. Number 8, we have deed of confirmation. All right. So, for better explanation, I'll read this from my notes so that you can understand it better. Now, this is ownership medium. This ownership medium is used when ownership is established by custom or inheritance, but lacks formal documentation. I'll take it again for those of us that are noting. This ownership medium is used when ownership is established by custom or inheritance, but lacks formal documentation. Exactly. You know, the first legal pathway I talked about was inheritance. That was the second thing I mentioned. Abby, according to your notes, I talked about inheritance, people owning land through inheritance. Now, if you want that inheritance to be solid, you can proceed to this deed of confirmation. It is still recognized, okay, where you get a land through inheritance or you got it the customary way. The first two items I mentioned on this list were customary ownership and inheritance. Now, to make it solid or to establish that ownership, you can proceed with deed of confirmation. For a family land, the head of the family and other principal family members are to execute or sign the document, while for a communal land, if it's a land owned by a community, the head and other leaders or custodians are to confirm ownership via this deed. I told us before that we have so many kinds of deeds. So please, after this class, just go back, research, and check different kinds of deed. This is very much legal, okay? This document is very much legal. Okay, now we move to number 9. We're almost done, please. At number 9, we have deed of sharing or partitioning. Now, land ownership can be established through this particular deed. What does this mean? When a land is owned by a family or a community, they can decide to now partition or share the land individually, like amongst themselves, so that Jacinta has from point A to point B. We say this is Jacinta's own. From here to here, we say this is Chisom's own. I'm sure we've seen lands like that when we go to the village. That time when I go to the village, my grandmother will tell me from here to here is your grandfather's brother's own. Then from here to here, something like that. So that is what this deed of sharing or partition simply implies. That a land ownership can be established through deed of sharing or partition when a family or communal land is shared among members. Now, a deed of partition or deed of sharing helps formally identify what portion belongs to whom. I hope that is clear, making it possible to transact legally with documentary proof to back it up. That a large expanse of land is owned by the Okeke family. Now, the Okeke family now said, okay, we don't want to own this land as a family. Let each of us, or each of the men, the four men, have their own portion. When that happens, this is the document that shows that this land is a family land, but this portion belongs to Mr. Joseph Okeke or Mr. Okechukwu Okeke, something like that. I hope this is clear. All right. Now, on the last but not the least, at number 10, we have allocation. Allocation by estate developers. All right. Now, when you buy a land from a real estate company, there is a document that is called allocation paper, something like that. That shows that you bought this land, or you have the right to own this land through purchase, on the basis of purchase from a real estate company. So that is what this simply shows. Now, okay, depending on the internal policy, some will give you a deed to back it up, which we do here. Sometimes we give deed of assignment. Like for most of our lands at Independence Layout Phase 2, we give deed of assignment, and we still give this allocation paper or certificate. So it's also recognized. Is that clear? Okay, now should we stop here? Any question? So let's look at capacity to own. Capacity to own and transfer title. What we just looked at, the 10, uh, the list of the other 10 I mentioned were just foundations that gives you right to own a land. Meaning, if you acquire a land through any of those 10 ways or pathways, you are still on the right path. Now, what capacity, after getting a land or obtaining a land like that, do you have the capacity to now sell? Remember the diagram I drew? I said, first you need to have the right to own, then you need to have the right to sell, and then transfer ownership or title. Now, the first 10 I listed were still foundations. Those were still the right of ownership or the right to own. Now, let's look at, if after owning or acquiring a land, like what gives capacity to now sell or transfer title. Now, there are 6 major entities on which you can validly own or transfer or sell a land. Number 1 is, as an adult, you have the right to own a land and transfer title as well, as long as Nigerian law is concerned. Being an adult gives you the capacity I'll just list it. I'll just list them and then explain one. Okay. Now, as an adult, being an adult, like I said, it gives you the capacity to own and transfer title. Being a minor, but this minor comes with a condition. You can only own a land as a minor through your representative of through the representative of an adult. So there has to be an adult standing in to own this land for you as a minor until you come of age. That is the condition for owning a land as a minor, meaning that you can buy your child a land and then hold it for your child until he or she becomes of age to now transfer title. So, but as a minor, you can still own a land through entities like an organization or an adult, and they must be authorized. Okay. Now, families, as a family, you can own a land. As a community, you can also own a land. You have the capacity to own a land, as many lands as possible. And as a family or as a community, you also have the capacity to transfer ownership or title. Registered companies. Now, that is where we, as a real estate company or firm, comes in. As a real estate company, we are registered. So we have the capacity and the right to own and also sell and transfer title. That is why when you buy from us, you will see us issue you deeds of assignment, C of O, and all of that. So under the Nigerian law, you have the right to do that. So when someone asks you again, why, what gives your company the right to sell people's land, tell them because under the Land Use Act of 1978 and under the Nigerian law, we have the capacity, because we are a registered company, we have the capacity and the right to sell and own land. The government, this is the them all. Many of us that the government owns the lands in a state. Okay, even that's your father's land, the one you inherited and the one you did not inherit, it still belongs to the government. That is why they can come into a community and say, from here to here, please give it to us, we need it. But when this happens, definitely a compensation takes effect. They will definitely compensate the community or the family they want to take the land from, as long as the land is not under government acquisition. Government still has the right to acquire any land, but under compensation. So I hope this is clear. We're almost rounding off. Okay, now for more emphasis, all of these entities that I've mentioned here must, emphasis on must, they must have the legal capacity. So this capacity is not just an ordinary capacity. There has to be a legal backing that powers ownership and transfer of title. Okay, so an adult owning a land should be legally powered. It should be a legal capacity this, there should be legal backings showing that you have the capacity to do anything real estate here. Okay. Now I'm rounding up. This is the last part. Can I wipe this off? Okay, my slide is on. Okay, so before you sell any piece of property as a realtor, in carrying out due diligence and establishing authority to sell, some of the foundational legal questions you must ask are: where is the title of the land coming from? I don't have time. I would have explained. There's something called root title, like tracing the title from the same way you trace your lineage to your forefathers. That is the same. It is also applicable to land where you trace um, root. They call it root title. Yes, where you have to trace where the title of the land is coming from. Okay, so this is part of your due diligence as a realtor. That is, if you are not sure of the person you're selling the land for, please factor this into your due diligence. Who is selling this land? This is a question of identity. You need to identify who is selling the land. Is it a question of a questionable character? Is it a family of a questionable character? Is it a community of a questionable character? Who is selling this land? Who has this land? Now, when you find out this and it's cleared, then you can proceed with selling or marketing the property. That is why real estate companies is still the best to buy land from, because these are the things we do, more and many more. I just have and before you acquire any land. So that is why when you buy from real estate companies, especially used group, no wahala. You can go and sleep. Now, okay, the third question there is, does the person have the capacity to own it? This is a question of ownership capacity. Remember what I said when I talked about capacity. It doesn't just have to be an ordinary capacity. Does the person have a legal capacity to own his land? Talk more of selling it or transferring titles. The question is, does the person have the capacity to sell? And the fifth question is, person the authority to sell? Explain. Capacity and authority to sell. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about capacity to sell. Now, capacity to sell. Someone can act on land really. Let me just use that one as an example. I can have a land or I can own a land as a family, but that doesn't give me the capacity to sell. Okay? Unless that of sharing or deed of partition now takes place. And then I can now say that in this family land is mine. At that point, I need to sell. As long as sharing and partitioning has not happened, it is still owned by a group of people. So one person cannot sell. You have to be authorized. I hope this is clear. For example, there's something called deed of not deed, power of attorney. There's something called power of attorney, right? because P of A. There is revocable and then there is irrevocable. Spell it right. I don't know if I spelled it right. Okay. Now, I can have a power of attorney to market or to sell this land. I can have a power of attorney, a document showing that I can sell this land. But if that right or the right you're given is power of attorney, power of attorney is simply a document that shows or captures the right you have to act on the original owner land. For example, Jacinta, please come. Let me explain this practically. Okay, Jacinta is my sister, and as it is, I'm in Canada. Just see me in Canada. Now, I'll now say, okay, Jacinta will now call me and say, please, oh, sister, we need money to sort out this, and this. I'll say, Jacinta, at the moment, I don't have money, oh, but then there's this land I have at Oji River. You can sell it for me now. Help me market it or lease it or sell it for me. But just act that you are the owner while I'm here in Canada. Now, the document that shows that Jacinta has the right to sell this land is power of attorney. Now, if I don't really trust Jacinta, what I will give her is revocable power of attorney. And this revocable power of attorney will show the rights she has to this land. At that moment, Jacinta has the capacity to sell, but she's not authorized. She doesn't have the authority to sell. I hope it's making sense. Okay. Now, irrevocable power of attorney now shows that the rights I've given Jacinta is irrevocable. She can do with it, she can act on my behalf. Any decision she takes, I'll see that it's me that took the decision. I trust her to that level that this document or this land, she can handle it and she has the authority to do whatever she can. It will still be listed in that power of attorney. Whatever right you give the person will still reflect in this document. So this is where you have to know how to study documents and know what a document is saying at a particular time. I hope it's clear. Thank you very much. So I hope this and this is clear. Thank you. Any question? I'm done though. Any question? All right, so this is my parting words. These various legal pathways to ownership forms the foundation for every transaction. It's very important to know pathways and what document legally backs each pathway to ownership of land in Nigeria. So as a realtor, you need to know and understand them thoroughly. What am I trying to say? Beyond what I've taught here or whatever I've said here, please go back, do your research and find out more about this. This will give you a clear and a better understanding of what I'm saying. It's not a must that you must or everything here. It's now go back and do your homework, study more, research more so that you can understand everything that I have said here. Okay. Another thing I wanted to say is you need to also know how to interpret documents. Most of us, we just say when you're asked what document does this land have, you say of assignment, it has C of O. But some of us have seen C of O, but they don't even know that it's C of O. How many of us have seen C of O here? You see? So sometimes just try to take a look at this document. Go online. You don't even need to go online. You see samples of what a C of O looks like. See the template. You see what it looks like. So that when you come across it, it won't be new to you. or a friend of yours or a family of yours, because this is where people will trust you more. Let's say you've been talking about real estate, so you've been shouting it in the ears of your family members or your friends. You've been shouting it, and they believe that, okay, this my sister with the knowledge about real estate, and they now bring a document to you and now ask you, Nebiko, what is this document saying? Help me interpret it. And then you are looking at it. Do you think that would build trust? They will feel like you still don't know what you're doing in this real estate work that you're doing. Okay, so once in a while, go online, search about these documents and know what they look like. So that when you see one, you'll be able to interpret it properly and you'll be able to understand it. Okay. Any question? Questions? I've spent so much time and I'm sorry about that. Questions, questions, questions. All right. Thank you very much for your time. God bless us all. Where's our moderation?
Sorry, I don't know. None of us have questions. Nobody, no question. Should we ask questions? Okay, maybe